I'm Melissa Shanahan, and this is the Velocity Work Podcast, episode number 80. This podcast is for attorneys who are running their own firms. We explore tactics, tools, and stories related to pushing past simply lawyering well and into building a successful firm. Working in your firm and working on your business are two very different things. This podcast focuses on the latter. Oh my goodness, hello. How are you guys? Welcome to the Velocity Work Podcast. I am excited that you're here with me today. I have some fun stuff to share with you today. Last week was fun. This week's fun. Next week's fun because this is a little mini series I'm sharing with you guys. And so this is the second of 3. And I love this stuff because it's not me, right? I'm not sharing the content with you. I didn't create this content to share with you. These are straight from attorneys who own their own firms. That is what I'm sharing with you today. The lessons that they have been learning on their journey. And I'm going to pass those along to you because I think some of you will recognize many of these as lessons that maybe you've read in a book before. I mean, we all know some of these things intellectually, but the application of these things and experientially learning these things is so totally different. And so that's why I'm excited to share these with you. And I said it last week, I will say it again. I really want you to listen to what I have to share with you, these lessons from these attorneys, as remembering that this is them in the pool swimming, like learning how to swim, so to speak. I say that because you've probably heard me on here say before that learning how to swim is not something you can read in a book. That is good to know. It's like, okay, that's good knowledge, but getting in the pool, that's how you learn to swim. And I think so many times we do that to ourselves with self-help books or business development books or what have you. And we learn all of this great knowledge. So we consume information, but we don't change. We don't apply it in a way that we have to actually grow ourselves in the learning of the lesson for real. And that's what these attorneys have done. And that's why I'm excited to share it with you. Okay, but first, before we dig into that, I have to tell you, I'm clapping. I don't know if you can hear that behind the microphone. So this is the first episode that has hit the waves since the March sprint doors opened. And so that is open to you. I highly encourage you to go check it out. It doesn't hurt to just look at the page. We've included some new really fun features to the page that help you understand better what a sprint is, like why people do it and why they love it so much. And so the doors are open to you. The spots are definitely limited. Clearly, as you'll see on the page, we have to keep this stuff small or else it dilutes the process. It dilutes the experience for the law firm owners, which I'm not willing to do. So go check it out and grab you can claim a time slot. There's only so many spots open in each time slot. So go grab the one you want. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing who joins us and who gets some major things accomplished in March, which will help you round out Q1 in a very strong way. That's why we strategically placed this one in March, was so that you could end Q1 strong. So come and join us. Okay, now, I just came off of a week at the Law Firm Growth Summit, and how wonderful was that event? And I'll tell you, it was great for so many reasons. I think there were some really brilliant minds there sharing their knowledge and their experience and giving you tools and just really good stuff for you to be able to walk away with. And what an honor and a privilege to be on the panel and to have a breakout session. I had a roundtable session. And I will say this, every time there's a conference, people walk away from that with, it's almost like you've been drinking from a fire hose. That's what I just actually emailed some of the participants that I got to interact with at Law Firm Growth Summit. And I said that in the email, like this, I'm sure you felt like you just drank from a fire hose. But remember, the whole thing is that you need to pick one thing off of your new list of ideas and priorities and go all in on that one thing. And then you'll get it done and then you move to the next. This is called constraint. I've done a podcast episode on it. I think it's actually one of the most popular episodes we've had. I know it's one of the most. I just don't know if it's the most popular. It's episode number 40. And it's this idea of constraint. We are so tempted as humans, and especially entrepreneurs, to have our hands dabbling in so many new things that we actually don't finish them. We don't experience a sense of completion because we kind of water ourselves down among many things, and things get busy and some things fall to the wayside, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to offer you, if you took part in the Law Firm Growth Summit and you are at this point, you have pages of good ideas and notes and things you want to incorporate. Get all of it, look at all of it and decide what's priority and pick the top thing and go for it. And by the way, there's no right thing that you can pick. Don't trick yourself into thinking, well, I don't know which one to pick. Just pick one. That is how, just go. Start on that one thing. Go all in on it because you'll be really surprised how quickly you get it done. So that's my advice. Now, clearly, the March sprint is a 30-day sprint that makes sure and provides accountability and support and helps, it's like sort of gets in the trenches with you as you are executing one thing. And it's always an on the business thing that the law firm owners bring that they want to make headway with. And some only have 30 minutes a day to give, and that's enough to blow their own mind by the end of the month. So just don't get in your own way when you have a lot of ideas. Pick one thing and go. And if the sprint sounds like something that would really add value to you and to help you learn how to actually execute on one thing and learn on your journey throughout the month and end Q1 strong, then by all means, please go check it out to see if it's something that feels like a good fit for you. Because if it is, and you decide to join, you essentially have a partner now in March for the end of Q1. And it's an unbelievable experience to have. So I welcome you in. Okay. The other thing from the Law Firm Growth Summit, I have to share this with you because it was so good. I wrote it down and like jaw dropped just how good this quote was. Let me find my quote here. So this was at a Q&A session that I attended, and I was on the panel for the Q&A. And Sam Malai, he is an entrepreneur. He is a business lawyer for entrepreneurs. And he's a huge resource, has an awesome YouTube presence. You should check him out. He said a quote that I loved. The quote is, "The more you matter to your law firm, the less your firm is worth." Is that not so good? Seriously. We all know that, right? But it's just packaged up nicely into that one sentence. That is one of the most beautiful sentences I have heard in a long time. So shout out to Sam. The more you matter to your law firm, the less your firm is worth. Oh my gosh. That's just so good. I think it speaks volumes to the importance of focusing on the business work. Because when you can do that, you start to help remove yourself or make yourself less necessary for the business to run. And, there's a lot of focus on that out there. There's a lot of people talking about how you need to get yourself to the place where you could disappear for 6 months and your business is still doing just fine. That's great, but I love the way that he so concisely put it into a sentence. And I hope that really hits home for you the same way it did for me. The more you matter to your law firm, the less your firm is worth. So you're welcome. Okay, let's dig into the lessons learned from the January sprint participants. Today's lessons learned are brought to you by Monday Map and calendaring and scheduling. That's all the lessons today that I'm going to share with you are centered around these owners' schedules, their calendars, how they plan their week, and how well they honor their week. That's really what the lessons today are going to be about. And I would say most of the lessons came that I'm sharing with you are actually this topic. So today's the heftiest batch of lessons, and next week's a little bit lighter. They're kind of the miscellaneous, so they're really good nuggets, but they didn't fall under a specific category. Those are what I'll share next week. All right, let's pull up that spreadsheet. I'm going to go in chronological order. These are all lessons that came out of January sprint from the law firm owners around calendaring, making a plan for their week, and honoring their plan. So it's their schedule. Now, Monday Map is something that every sprint participant practices and every client in Mastery Group or Sprint practices. And that I went into depth on an episode in early December. Monday Map is in the title, so you will see it there. December 2020. That is a process that is important because it will shine a light very quickly on all the areas that you as the owner need to work on how you operate. It's one of the fastest ways to make a lot of growth and a lot of headway is to actually abide by that process because it's very simple, but because of the way that you're typically used to operating, it's a challenge to really abide by it and do it well. It's about progress, not perfection. And each of the participants are actually doing that as they go through the sprint. They plan their weeks. They use Monday Map and Friday Wrap, which is a process they teach. So the first lesson of the month that came around that topic is when you're doing something you don't have a lot of experience with, you should add a reasonable buffer. Now, this is what that's about. I always teach to give overflow time or buffer time in your day because no matter how great your plan is, inevitably life happens, things come up, and your plan isn't going to work out perfectly. So if you add a little buffer time to your day, it makes it so that your day isn't screwed whenever those things happen, whenever your plan goes, you have to go off track of your plan. So that's the point is when you're doing something you don't have a lot of experience with, and oftentimes on the business work is something you're not sure exactly what it's going to take, how much time you need to give and all of that. You don't really know the ins and the outs with something new that you're doing. It's important to have buffer time. So that was the first lesson. Second lesson, I need to calendar my weekends like I do the week to allow for rest. Be intentional about your work and your rest on the weekends. I loved this lesson and I wanted to share this with you because I know many of you allow your work to kind of overflow into the weekend. And some of you are okay with that. Like I'm not here to say you shouldn't be working as on the weekends as a law firm owner. You know what? You get to make those calls for yourself. And in order for that to be the case, you're going to have to restructure some things and look at some things and get honest about some things. So it's not a light switch that you flip off where you're just done working on the weekends. For most people, it's not possible just to flip that off. You really have to set yourself up and sort of ease into this, like, okay, I'm going to work towards not working on the weekends. Over the course of a month, I'm going to get to the place where I'm not working on the weekends anymore. So I loved this because there are those of you who are going to choose to work on the weekends because you want to, or because for whatever reason you will choose to. And making sure that you are actually scheduling time for rest is really important through the week too, actually. But you want to make sure you're taking care of yourself. The weekend is, for most people, a bit of space to rejuvenate, enjoy your loved ones, or do some things that you may not indulge in doing during the week. And if you don't plan for it, sometimes you'll just work straight through the weekend. I was talking to someone else recently that was talking about their Monday Map, and they're planning their week. And when they decided they were going to end work earlier than normal, and they felt really good about that. But then they went home and they were kind of stir crazy. They didn't know what to do with themselves. It's almost like we get in this way of working, and it's a way of life that we just work most of the time and we have minutes of reprieve instead of really spending our time enjoying ourselves with the free time that we have. So, plan your rest. And by rest, it doesn't mean you have to lay with your feet up. Plan your rejuvenation, plan your personal time. That's why I loved this lesson and I wanted to share it with you guys, is that that's something this person really learned through experience, is planning specific things that they're going to do to rejuvenate on the weekend. And this may sound silly, but if that means that you put an hour in your calendar at some point that says, kick my feet up and watch a show, or do X with my family, play a board game with my kids. Like, what is it? But put in what you're going to do because it'll help you be really present and show up when you're supposed to show up to spend that time to enjoy yourself instead of just allowing work to sort of run through everything. So I loved that lesson. I wanted to share it with you guys. Okay, next one. Honoring my plan gives me energy to keep going with the project. Even if what I create isn't as great as I thought, it keeps me confident in moving forward. This is speaking to having this sense of completion. When you make a plan and you honor your plan, you actually get something done. It's finished. It's in the bag. Doesn't mean you can't go back to tweak it. But how often do we not finish something because we just we didn't plan well enough maybe, but then even if we did, we may not honor the plan. I knew intellectually that decision fatigue was real, but I have never experienced the absence of it. Now, because I made all the decisions in the front of the week, I have more energy to put into the work. This is one of the most beautiful things that ends up coming out of practicing Monday Map and Friday Wrap is that you do all of that. You make all the decisions ahead of time. The definition of planning is making decisions ahead of time, period. So when you make decisions ahead of time, then your job when it's time to honor the plan is just execution. Put your head down and honor the plan. Don't think, don't stop, don't have an internal debate. No, you just do the thing. And when you do that, it's crazy how efficient you are when you work because there isn't that decision fatigue there. You aren't using your brain, the watts of energy in your brain for making decisions. Those are the decisions have been made. Now it's just time to work. So I loved that one. I wanted to share with you guys. Honoring my plan gives me confidence. This I loved. And this kind of goes back to that sense of completion. You do get confidence when you start just getting things done. Bam, bam, bam. That's done, then that's done, then that's done. And you have this sense of completion with one thing after the next. You really sort of build this foundation for yourself and you could stand a little taller and it's easier to take a breath because even though things still may be chaotic and lots of business and lots of things to worry about in the business, you feel good about what's happening alongside that. You could stand tall and proud knowing that you're actually getting these things accomplished. Okay, next up. Having a dedicated block of time for working on the business keeps me moving forward. We talk about in Monday Map that there is something you should schedule every day is on the business time. I call it focus time for on the business. And some people have 30 minutes to give every day and some people have 2 hours. It really depends on you and what you've got set up for yourself. But having a specific amount of time every day set up where you show up and you've already decided at the front of the week what you're going to be doing in each one of those blocks of time. So when you get to that day and that time, you do the thing. And so having a dedicated block of time for working on the business keeps me moving forward. That lesson, you could kind of see why that's the lesson. Okay. I need to do a mid-month check-in on my calendar on things that really matter to me. Clients, profitability, enjoyment, time and effort. And so yours doesn't have to look exactly like that. But the reason I wanted to share this with you is because having a mid-month check-in for yourself, just kind of raise your gaze, right? Because as I said before, you make decisions on the front end and then you execute. And sometimes it's nice just to take a broader gaze. And so raise your gaze, have a look at the landscape. How are things going? And then put your head back down. You make decisions for the upcoming week and you put your head back down. It's nice to just be able to do a check-in mid-month to see, is this month going as I planned? How are we doing here? Are the things that I care about, are we giving attention to those things or somehow they're getting lost? So I loved that. I wanted to share that with you. All these come from experience. I can actually get stuff done without an outside imposed deadline when I honor my calendar. I honor myself when I honor my calendar, which means I can then see the light at the end of the tunnel. I love this one because what it means is that this participant actually proved to themselves that they don't need this an outside imposed deadline. they just need their own deadlines. They just need to make a plan that works really well, that actually is possible. And so at the front end of the week, making a realistic plan for your week, although initially when you're doing this, it could be deflating because it feels like I should be able to get so much more done than what actually fits in my calendar. But the crazy thing is, when you just honor your calendar, you really blow your own mind with that stuff actually gets done. And I love what she said about it. I honor myself when I honor my calendar. It's like when we don't honor the calendar, like let's just say you make a good enough plan for your week, like you really thought it through, but then you don't really honor it. You indulge in distractions, you allow, client, and I'm putting air quotes around emergencies. Maybe it's not really an emergency, but you like drop what you're doing for a client in the moment and it throws you off your schedule. All of that, you always have to remember you're saying yes to something. And when you honor your calendar, you're saying yes to you. And of course, when you make your plan, you're making sure that clients are being taken care of, your team is being taken care of, your family is being thought of. So when you say yes to you by honoring your plan, everything takes care of itself. When you, in the middle of the week, say yes to the thing that flies up in your face, or yes to the thing that really pulls you off track, then you're saying no to you and to the plans that you made from a well thought out place. So you always have to remember you're saying yes to something. And when you honor your calendar, you're honoring yourself. You're saying yes to yourself and everything that is meaningful to you. Okay, next one. Daily tasks are building blocks for future action. I liked the simplicity of this one because when you break something down small enough and you have your tasks there and scheduled in your calendar, you can bank on the fact that you're creating your future. What you do today decides your tomorrow. So if you aren't really intentional with the tasks that you're accomplishing every day, then you're not really being intentional with the future that you're creating. So I love the simplicity of this because there's a lot of meaning behind it. Daily tasks are building blocks for future action. I need to decide how and when I respond to emergencies. This is good. This one I've talked about before in the podcast episode. Actually, I don't know the number, but the title of the podcast was called Stop Answering Things Immediately. And we actually talk about emergencies in that. When emergencies happen, it's so funny. If you don't have a definition for an emergency, a lot of things feel urgent and like an emergency. But if you actually define, for the most part, there's going to be outliers, but for the most part, what is an emergency in my firm? What does that mean? What would have to happen that it actually is important enough to pull me out of what I'm doing, to stop everything, to abandon my plan, to go deal with this? One of the coolest lessons I loved that came out of June 2020 sprint was from a woman that I admire greatly. And she said that one of her lessons learned was, I'm not quoting this verbatim, but the gist of it was that great customer service does not mean customer service in immediate customer service. And I loved that. Like, you don't have to drop everything to deliver really good customer service. And so how she dealt with that is like, okay, if it meets this criteria, then I will drop what I'm doing. And so that her team knows to get her and she'll drop what she's doing. If it doesn't meet that criteria, then she has some space on her calendar to be able to deal with the things that popped up for clients that day, or at least to kind of get the ball rolling with something. And so she will begin to address those at a different time in her day. And she has it set aside and everyone is taken care of. Instead of someone sort of popping up and her just dropping what she's doing, which again, going back to earlier, that's saying no to herself and her plan and saying yes to the critical. And it really didn't need to be that way. So I loved this lesson that I need to decide how and when I respond to emergencies. And really what's behind this, and we talked about this day with this client, is you need to define what an emergency is to you, and then you'll know how and when to respond to it. Let's see. You can't think and hit at the same time. This is a good one. This is a reference. I think this is a quote from a baseball great, and the participant used that as the lesson learned. And this is the idea that I talk about often with people, that you can't execute and think at the same time. It's just put in a nice way, packaged up nicely. You can't think and hit at the same time in this quote, because planning is decision making upfront, making decisions ahead of time. Execution is just that. You just do it. That's you hitting it. You just knock one out of the park, and then the next out of the park, and the next out of the park, and the next out of the park. That's the execution phase. If you have to stop and lift your head and think, where should I start with this thing? Then you don't have the tasks broken down small enough. That means you're asking yourself to think and hit at the same time. So the more you can set yourself up on the front end to not have to think and hit at the same time, the better off you're going to be, the smoother your week is going to feel. This is where decision fatigue is so reduced by making those decisions ahead of time. So you think ahead of time, and the week is for hitting. And generally speaking, right? For the most part. When things get off track, take 5 minutes to reevaluate the rest of the day. And I'm going to add here, or the week. So when things do get off track, we've talked about, you have the overflow time. So if it does get off track, it's doesn't ruin your day. But when things do get off track, just take 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Sometimes it doesn't even take that long. Take a step back, look at your calendar, reorganize, rearrange, so that then you know what to expect from yourself the rest of the day and others. And I would say also the rest of the week. So if it's something that's big enough that kind of threw the day off enough, you need to push some things to tomorrow, then, or et cetera, then you can look at your week and kind of readjust some things. And that way you don't just throw your hands up and are like, oh, my week's just screwed now. No, just take some time, stay in control. Don't give up your power. Don't give up your control where you can easily take it. Take 5 minutes, and that'll help you stay in control for the rest of the day and the rest of the week. When there's a fire, look at your plan and deal with it rather than fly by the seat of your pants for the rest of the week. This is very similar, right? This was a different participant, same lesson, but they're really learning this. Boots on the ground kind of learning, in the pool kind of learning, not just reading this and thinking it's a good idea. Let's see. Be honest with yourself and do not make excuses when it comes to liking your reason. Here's where this is coming from. Whenever you decide to go off your plan, and I think of your week as like a protocol. You've said this is the protocol for the week. And so when you go off protocol, you want to make sure that when you do that, it's conscious and you like your reason for it. Because sometimes there's going to be a reason that's good enough to abandon what you said you were going to do in that moment. And so that's where you take a step back, you look at your calendar and you readjust some things, and you want to like your reason for that. If you just end up like flaking out on yourself, that's not a good way to handle that. And maybe you still liked your reason, but you didn't stay in control there. You didn't actually look at things and say, okay, I'm going to adjust these so that I can deal with this now. Right? So you want to like your reason. And when I say like your reason, you will know as you reflect back on your day or your week, you will know that spot where your plan went off track. Is that because you gave into a distraction, or you indulged in something that wasn't really necessary, or you didn't have an emergency defined, and so you just jumped when a client called and it really wasn't necessary to do in the moment? Like all of those things. Do you really like you could create justifications for why you did it. Sometimes it could just feel like you had no choice, but that's not true. You have choices. And in the moment, if it's just default, it's just something unconsciously you rolled into, typically you're not going to love your reasons for that. So you just want to evaluate and make sure, like this participant was saying, be honest with yourself and don't make excuses when it comes to, do you like your reason or not? Okay. Next one. Outlining the time for each item in my Monday map, my brain download, and scheduling a block of short tasks together is helpful to my productivity. I love this because I actually do this myself. When I'm doing my brain download from a Monday map, I look at everything and the tasks, you put an amount of time next to each task. The tasks are like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I batch those together and I'll have a block of time in my calendar that is set for task completion. And so then I could, in that calendar event, I have listed bulleted list the things that I'm going to get done. And I make sure that my block of time is set appropriately. But that's what this person is saying. I think before, when people start doing this, all their brain download has all these little tasks, and they try to schedule the little tasks on their calendar. And you could totally do that. But I think for most people, it's nice to kind of see them clumped together as long as you add up the time. So if you have, 4 5-minute tasks, 1 10-minute task, and a 15-minute task, that's 45 minutes. So you got 45 minutes, a block of time on your calendar. You put those tasks in that event, the calendar event, and then you know exactly what to do when it's time. You sit down and you do those things. It's all listed out for you. This is what I mean by you don't think and hit at the same time, right? Like you thought in advance, it's all there for you in your calendar. Now you just open up your calendar event and just 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So just thought that was good and useful to share with you guys. I am getting better and better at using my calendar as my North Star for determining what I do and what I want to do and what I don't want to do. I loved that, because the clearer you are about, making your plan, when it's time to honor your plan, you start to get a really good read on when you feel like crap doing something and when you don't. Because typically we'll avoid things. If we don't want to do it, we'll put it off, we'll procrastinate. But if you make a plan and you honor your plan, your job is to really feel the crap, like feel the urge to go do something different, feel the urge to procrastinate, and you take a breath and you let that terrible sensation really just take over. For sometimes it just lasts, if you really allow that sensation to go through you, because the feeling of dread, for example, that's a pretty terrible feeling to experience. But if it's on your calendar and it's something that needs to be done and you made a plan because it needs to be done, your job then is to not use willpower and like smack down through it, because that's not growing and developing yourself. That's an exhaustible resource that you're calling on. What is the developing thing for yourself? The growth thing is to actually allow that really crappy feeling to just sit and take you over. Don't resist it. Take a breath and you do the thing anyway. It's almost like you're willing to feel anything and take the action required, like honor yourself, instead of abandoning and fleeing the second that you feel that and push it off. It's almost like you just flick your to-do down the road because you don't feel like doing it. But the great way to handle it is to breathe and move and do it anyway. Okay, a few more. Adjusting the map throughout the week is essential, because otherwise you get back to having to make decisions as you sit down. This is very similar to what we talked about before, thinking and hitting at the same time. Adjust the map throughout the week as your plan doesn't go perfectly. Just make adjustments, take the 5 minutes, adjust, and then get back in the game. Because that way, if you do readjust, then it allows you to just hit again. But if you don't readjust, every time you sit down to do work, you have to think and then hit, and then think and then hit, and then think and then hit. And that's where decision fatigue will come in. And it does take a toll on you. And even if you don't care about that, like you're like, well, it doesn't affect me that much. I bet you care about your level of efficiency. But those two things both improve heavily when you just take a moment to adjust. There is value to planning out what you're going to do fully. Planning saves time and it makes the end product better. This is true for many things. This person was actually talking about videos that they were creating. And so her whole thing was there's value to planning out what you're going to say on the video. Planning saves time and it makes the videos better. But it really could be applied to anything. When you have a plan, it's so much easier to get the work done. Same thing. The reason it's easier is because you just hit. You don't have to think and get your bearings. You already did all that. Now it's just time to execute. It's important to make the brain dump more comprehensive. Include the things that are not work related, the non-recurring tasks from my personal life. So like things that come up. Do you need a haircut? Do you need to pick up your kids from school at a different time this week? What are the things that you need to think about for your personal life? When are you going to exercise? When are you going to prep your meals if that's something that matters to you? Like you really have to think about you as a whole when you're scheduling things, because if you leave yourself in the dust, that's only going to go so far before the wheels start to come off. So you really have to take everything into account. And that way it's that way your plan actually is possible. That's one of the biggest reasons. I mean, there's a couple other reasons why people's plans aren't good. At the beginning of the week, even if they calendar things, they cut themselves short. They don't give themselves enough time with what they're doing, and they don't take themselves into account. They don't give themselves room to breathe or go to the restroom or eat. So all of that has to it's like you're leaving yourself in the dust with your calendar, and it just doesn't need to be that way. It just doesn't. And if there's all these reasons coming up for you and rebuttals where you're like, no, it does need to be that way for me. I am that busy. Okay, take control. No one is ever going to give you the reins. No one is going to give you control and say, hey, why don't you go ahead and just make my experience as the client fit your life? No, and you have to do that. And when you do it, you could do it in a way that makes sure the client is taken care of and that they don't feel a bump in the road, right? But you are taking care of you. Same for your team, same for your family. Take it all into account. When you do that, that means you can honor your plan. And that means you can honor the expectations that you set with other people. And no one gives a flying F if you are doing it one day extra early or 1 week early. They just want to know that they're getting their end product and when to expect it. Like, just give people what they need and what they want, right? And make sure that you are taking care of yourself in the process, and don't lie to yourself and say that that isn't possible. That isn't true. I've worked with way too many attorneys on this. I think if anybody has a really hard time figuring all of this out, their schedule and balancing the in the work and on the work business and family and personal life, it's attorneys. I do think you have a difficult task to meet to be able to and do all of it, and in a way that you feel a sense of ease and flow. Doesn't mean you don't hustle, but it's not so stressful. You can totally do it. So if there's something in your mind that tells you that's not possible for you, that is optional. Your thought about your schedule and what's possible is optional. So my advice to you is to choose a different thought and actually try this and apply it and keep an open mind and be committed to creating something that is easy and not easy. Sorry. It's simple, but it's not easy. Something that is possible and makes sense for your life and honors your clients and your firm. All of that is possible. So I'm going to give you that thought to try on and to think as an option, because it is an option. And once you grasp that, you could create a very different reality for yourself. You could take the reins in a very different way. Be gentle yet insistent in how you talk to yourself when you feel tempted to abandon your plan. This goes back to earlier we were talking about just take a breath, let that really crappy feeling be there, and then move forward anyway. And be gentle yet insistent. I really loved that that's what this participant said. And that's a skill in those moments to, instead of abandoning your plan, just be gentle, take a breath, and be insistent that you do honor your plan. Having everything on my Monday map takes away the psychic pressure of wondering if things are falling through the cracks. Oh, this is a good one. This is the final lesson. Having everything on your Monday map, having everything out of your head and onto paper, and then you schedule what needs to be scheduled, takes away the psychic pressure of wondering if things are falling through the cracks. I know that feeling as an owner. I know you guys know that feeling. And this is a very true statement that once you actually take the reins and you get realistic and you get everything out of your head onto paper and you create a plan that's possible, that's actually doable, you take away the psychic pressure and the psychic worry of just wondering, am I missing something? Is something falling through the cracks? Everything is taken care of. You made sure of that up front. All right, everybody, have a wonderful week. Join us for the sprint, velocitywork.com/sprint. And I'll see you here next week with round 3 of the lessons learned. Hey there. If you enjoyed this podcast, I highly recommend you come and check out Mastery Group. It is where owner attorneys come together to study this material, apply it, and thus create really big results for their firm and for their life. So come on over, velocitywork.com/join to get more information and get started. Show notes from this episode can be found at velocitywork.com/podcast.